So just a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to begin with what is Holganix, the company, and then we're going to dive into Bio 800 Plus, what's in it, and who uses it. The last 15 minutes of the webinar are going to be reserved for you guys. You can go ahead and ask any question you have in mind, and Barrett and David will be on the line to answer them. Which brings me to our Meet the Host. So just a brief introduction about who our hosts are today. Barrett Ersek is our founder and CEO. You guys may have heard him on previous webinars. You know, he's been in the industry since he was 17, and he's successfully grown and sold 2 other businesses in the green industry before founding Holganix in 2010. And then Dr. David Stark, he spent over 25 years at Monsanto serving in a leadership role, and he has helped develop, launch, and expand dozens of products for farmers and consumers. He's come to us at Holganix in, I guess, about the last year, huh, David? Or has it been 2 years now? I'm starting to lose track.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. All right, so Barrett, you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, okay, so thanks again for everybody for attending, giving us your valuable time here. Hopefully we can give you some education on Holganix, on our Bio 800 product line, and frankly, if you have any other questions around microbial health, soil health, plant health that we can answer, you know, go ahead and shoot. I've got a lot of experience of using these types of products in the field with all kinds of soils, all kinds of plants, and Dr. Stark's a PhD molecular biologist who has a lot of years of research and all kinds of things down to the DNA and microbial level. So, you know, got some resources here. Use this up. Looks like we have a big variety of people on the phone, from agriculture to lawn care to distribution, and so to golf course superintendents. So, you know, we're going to try to kind of keep things compelling to all of those audiences. If there's some more specifics to your use, by all means, ask us in the question in the Q&A, and we'll dive in as deep as we can. So, first of all, what is Holganix? The word Holganix, that's the name of our company. The word of Holganix comes from the 2 words holistic and organic. So it's a holistic, organic approach to healthy plants through healthy soil. And specifically, what we do is we like to focus on microbiology. So our entire philosophy of all of our Holganix products are, they're designed to feed plants, but they're really designed to promote robust, healthy ecosystem at a microbiological level. And our entire philosophy is that if the soil's healthy at a microbiological level, that soil will do a lot to take care of the plants naturally. Doesn't mean it reduces, it doesn't mean it eliminates the need for fertilizers or in some cases pesticides, but what it does mean is that we have a healthier plant that frequently will need less fertilizers and pesticides. And often we only focus on feeding the plant directly. We don't always focus on the soil and feeding the biology and bringing biology out to the soil. So that's what we're all about, is providing an entire portfolio of products that focus on soil health and plant health. But it all starts with that microbiological ecosystem. So, you know, at the end of the day, why does biology matter? If you think about, you know, we've all seen these probiotic commercials with Jamie Lee Curtis talking about Activia in her yogurt, improving the digestion of her stomach through beneficial probiotics. Well, it's not a whole lot different with the plants. I mean, if you think about the soil is, you know, if you think about the soil, it's the stomach to the plant. Most of the food that goes into the plant has to get through the soil to get there. So if we can create a more robust microbiological ecosystem in the soil, that plant is going to be able to feed itself much more efficiently. And the fertilizers we apply are going to be used more efficiently. The natural nutrients that are available to that plant are going to be much more accessible. And at the end of the day, if we can create a robust population of beneficial biology, you know, it's just laws of physics. 2 things can't occupy the same space at the same time. If we've got a lot of good guys, a lot of beneficial microbial activity, then we don't have the room for the pathogens to really thrive and multiply. As a result, we frequently see less disease pressure when we can get soil in really good shape at a microbiological level. So all of those things, you know, really make soil important, and specifically the microbiology in the soil. So what is Bio 800? So I'm getting ahead of myself here. So Holganix Bio 800 Plus. So what does that mean? So if you look at all of the diversity and variety of the microbial populations in any of the Bio 800 refrigerated products, you're going to get over 800 species of beneficial bacteria, beneficial fungi, as well as protozoa, nematodes, beneficial nematodes, and amoeba. So when you look at what's in that jug, it's an entire microbiome, concentrated microbiome in a jug. And at the end, if you think about the fact that it needs to be refrigerated, some people look at that and say, wow, that's kind of odd that I got to refrigerate my fertilizer. But there's a flip side to that, is that in order to have that much life, that entire microbial diversity, the diversity of microbial populations within that jug in a very high concentration, if you want that to be healthy for a long period of time, fresh, healthy, alive, we need to keep it refrigerated. They're single-celled organisms, so below 44 degrees, they're basically dormant. And so, that's what really makes the Holganix Bio 800 stand apart, I think, from almost any other commercially sold microbial product out there. Most of your products that people will refer to as bugs in a jug, or they'll refer to as hey, I've got a microbial or a bio product that'll compete with Holganix. Typically, they're talking about a product that may have a single strain of bacillus, or maybe they could have up to maybe 5 to 10 strains of microbials, but they're not going to have anywhere close to 800. And to have that entire microbiome in a bottle gives us a tremendous amount of diversity, which is going to give us a lot of tools to deal with problems and to access nutrients and to improve soil health. When you only have a few tools, 5, 6, 7 microbes strains of microbes in a bottle, then you've got very limited tools. And so I like to say, if we're going into comparing it to like a knife, you've got a scalpel or you've got a Swiss Army knife. The Bio 800 is more like a Swiss Army knife than a scalpel. So if you look at Bio 800, what's in it? What are the benefits? We're going to increase your tolerance from stress, and that would be high traffic, recovery from high traffic, weather extremes, so too hot, too wet, too dry, disease, insects. All of those things are the plants are going to do better when you have regular application of Bio 800 in the soil, and we're building that quality of that soil up. Tremendous at root development. I frequently will get a customer say to me, hey, it sounds good. How do I test it? How do I prove it's working? And typically, if it's the right time of the year when roots are growing, we can do a control over a 90-day span, 60 to 120 days, but frequently it's 90 days, and we can pull soil probes and show significant root development when people use Holganix to help manage their turf, trees, shrubs, flowers. We've got Mycorrhizae in Holganix that's great at building roots, trichoderma, but it's the entire synergy of how it all works together, really good at building roots. And when you have deep, thick roots, that naturally gives you better water retention, because at the end of the day, the plant is going to access that water in the soil through roots. If we have denser roots, if we have deeper roots, if we have more fibrous roots, we're going to access more water more efficiently. But beyond that, we're going to improve plant physiology, and we're going to improve how the cells can retain water and use water. And so overall, water retention is improved both in the plant and in the soil. And we also add organic matter in the soil. So as you add organic matter, you add the soil's ability to hold water. Nutrient uptake, so nutrient enhancers, biostimulants, that type of thing. Nutrient uptake means that fertilizers you apply are going to be used much more efficiently. We're going to help those fertilizers be taken up by the plant in a much more efficient manner. And overall, just balancing that ecosystem with active microbial microorganisms is going to give us a lot of benefits. So let's talk about the product line. So, as I said on the beginning of the call, we've got people from ag, people from lawn care, people from golf, and so different audiences. If it's in a refrigerator, it's part of the Bio 800 product line. And so within that, we've got a formula specifically for lawn, a formula specifically for golf, an agricultural formula, a flower formula called Bloom, and a tree and shrub formula. They all have over 800 species of beneficial microorganisms. They've all got the sources of microbe food. So we're going to help the microbiology in two different ways. One is we're bringing the beneficial microbiology out to the soil and actually putting it into the soil because it's in the jug and it would go into your sprayer. But the other way that we help microbiology is we feed microbiology. If you feed something, it thrives, it grows, it does better. So we've got food sources for biology, and we've got biology active. We've also got the 3 sources of nutrient enhancers, so your biostimulants, humic, aminofulvic acids, those types of things, kelp extract. And then you've got your micronutrients. So you've got all of those things in any one of the formulas, lawn, golf, ag, bloom, tree, shrub, but the biology ratios are in different ratios. So as an example, the tree shrub formula is going to be more fungally dominant compared to the lawn formula is going to be more bacterial dominant. So it's just an example. So they are truly different formulations for different uses, but all within the same philosophy of biology, microbe food, nutrient enhancers, and micronutrients, all in that same container. So, a lot of people, some people like Dr. Stark, he's a PhD molecular biologist. He can go as deep as you want to go on specific microbes and what they're doing in the soil and get down to DNA. And sometimes we lose people. But if you just think about a compost pile and you think about what happens to these, so you got this decomposing vegetable material on one side, clippings and what have you, and yard waste. And if you do the right things to that compost pile, it turns into rich black dirt. Put that rich black dirt in your vegetables, you got happy vegetables. What happens? Well, you've got microbiology that becomes very abundant in a compost pile because it has the right food sources, it gets the right combination of things for the biology to grow. That biology goes to work on that decomposing vegetable material and clipping and releases the natural food sources that are tied up in those plants and turns it into this rich black pile of compost that you then put on your vegetables. Well, there's a middleman that's making that all happen, and the middleman is the microbiology. So, we don't exactly take everything that's in a compost pile. It's more specific than that. But if you think about the power of a compost pile, you understand the power of microbiology. And if you can harness that power and put it on your soil on a regular basis, you're going to have happier, healthier plants, just as if you were to top dress with compost. So it's a very simple way to kind of get this as a concept without understanding all of the soil science. So if you want to go a little deeper, what specifically is happening, you've got microbes, including growth-promoting bacteria, mycorrhizae, and stimulate healthy growth in the foliage as well as the roots. You've got microbes that convert and release nutrients. You've then got microbes that promote plant tolerance from stress, including weather, disease, high traffic, all of those things. And then you've got microbes that balance the soil ecosystem overall, providing for happy plants and better soil and everything else just kind of working better. So that's a little bit more complex way of looking at what's happening in that same compost pile. So when you think about the people that use Holganix, there's a lot of different ways to use it, the Bio 800 products. In a lawn care environment, we've got people that use it as a 100% organic option with organic fertilizers, and that's fine, and we like those customers. But I would say that most of our customers use it in conjunction with synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. So we're not going to necessarily eliminate the need for all of these things. We can if we want to work with somebody that wants to be an innovative organic applicator, but most customers in the lawn care side, they simply want green, weed-free lawns at a low cost, but they want to do it in a way that reduces the amount of inputs as much as possible. And so by using the organic components and the probiotics in Holganix, we can typically use 50% less fertilizer, yet produce a very similar result that you would have produced previously with the full rate of fertilizer. And we can reduce pesticides up to 75% as well by making them work more effective because they enter the plant more efficiently, but also because we have a more robust, healthy plant, we just need less pesticides. And so at the end of the day, Holganix can be a tool for you to reduce the synthetic inputs that you need by a significant factor, but not necessarily always replacing them. And we're not saying just go all organic and never use a chemical again, unless that's part of your philosophy. And if it is, we'd like to work with you. But we can also work with your kind of more mainstream users that want to use some synthetics, some chemicals. We're not eliminating that as an option. So why Bio 800 over other probiotics? I frequently will get a customer and next thing you know we'll have the local distributor who's selling some other product come in and say, oh, I got a product just like Holganix, but it's not refrigerated. And, you know, my instant answer to them would be, well, it's probably not a Bio 800 product. It's not comparable to Bio 800. The only way to keep that diversity and variety and health of active, vivacious microbes is through the refrigeration process. We help our customers with the refrigeration process by providing the refrigeration. That's how much we believe in it. And so anybody who says they've got a microbial product similar to Holganix, the first thing I'd ask them is, tell me about the diversity of biology you have in there. How many strains of bacteria? How many strains of fungi? And if they're going to look you in the eye with an unrefrigerated product, I'd be willing to bet you it's less than 10. In addition, there are other people who make compost teas and things like that do have some variety and diversity of biology, and there's good products out there that people can make locally from a compost tea source. The problem with compost teas is frequently you end up with very inconsistent products. Each time you make it, it's a different product. And so there's a real art to that, to getting any level of consistency in a compost tea. What we're doing is really more of a systematic engineered process with consistent formulations. And we do DNA fingerprinting on every single batch of Holganix that comes out of our facility. So DNA fingerprinting allows us to actually measure the exact variety of biology, the exact biological counts. And so every single batch of Holganix comes out, we know exactly what's in it, and it can be very consistent. Since 2010, we've spent 6 figures a year, so over $100,000 a year on university studies. We have university partners that we pay to test and trial and learn about our products and help make our products better and better, in addition to years of field testing. And again, that refrigeration is key to keeping things healthy and fresh and alive, and we provide refrigeration for our customers in turn for a acreage commitment. So what is in Bio 800? And with this, this is where I turn over to Dr. David Stark, who's going to get into some of the science around the specific biology that's in Bio 800. So Dave, turn it over to you.
Okay, great. So we can go to the next slide. So again, Barrett already went over this in terms of what's in the product. We're going to focus on all of these different components, but we're going to keep it at a pretty high level. But if you're curious how a single product like Holganix can do so many things, help the plant have better rooting, more disease tolerance and stress tolerance, use less inputs and less fertilizer, well, the explanation really is in the microbes that are in the jug. So let's go to the next slide. So the active microbes. A healthy soil is full of microbial life, and it's probably one of the most important components of microbial life, or of a healthy soil. And really the microbes in the plants work together to help build soil structure, build cation exchange capacity, organic matter, and to really make that soil alive and work for you. Soils that have been mistreated, and if you think about what goes on with the plant and the microbes, so a typical plant is going to expend up to 30% of its energy secreting food, mostly sugars and carbohydrates in the root zone, to attract bacteria and fungi into the root zone. So plants want beneficial microbes, because the beneficial microbes then will take the organic matter that's in the soil, plant debris and animal debris that's on the soil, and convert that into nutrients for the plant. So they work together. So for example, if there were no microbes, you know, that picture of plant material when Barrett spoke about compost, it would never degrade. Grass clippings would never degrade. Pieces of corn stalks out in the field would never degrade. We have to have the microbial activity to break that down, because all of that plant material contains nutrients that the plant wants and needs. And so the only way the plant gets to it is if the microbes make it available. So let's talk more about the microbes in the next slide. There are a lot of different types that make up healthy microbes in the soil. And actually, it's not just in the soil. There are bacteria that are beneficial that live on the plant surface and actually live inside the plant. And Holganix contains all of these. So the most abundant microbe class that's in the soil and is in Holganix are bacteria. And most of these are going to be broadly plant growth promoting bacteria. Basically bacteria that are breaking down organic matter or taking nutrients that are in the soil the plant can't access and making them available. So another piece of data that I've seen is up to 40% of the fertilizer that we pay money for and we apply never goes to the plant. That's pretty inefficient. The reason is the fertilizer can wash off with rainwater or irrigation. Some of it can evaporate. You probably all know what ammonia smells like, and that's bad because that's the nitrogen we want to go to the plant actually going back into the air. And so the microbes make the fertilizer more efficient. And a lot of fertilizer, when it hits the soil, different things happen to it. It turns into a chemical form the plant can no longer absorb. So the microbes fix all of that. Plant growth promoting bacteria are a big part of that. There's also nitrogen fixing, nutrient solubilizing bacteria. You've probably seen competitive products that talk about how they solubilize phosphorus or they make nitrogen more available. Well, those are great. They're important. But if you think of your field, whether that's a lawn or an ag field, that soil is not uniform. You may have a phosphorus problem in one part. You may have a nitrogen problem in another. You may have low cation exchange capacity in a different spot. So putting only a single component or a single type of microbe down may give some benefit, or it may give partial benefit to parts of your field. But you really need the whole complex to make that soil most active and most available. So let's go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit more about bacteria. So nutrient solubilizing bacteria, again, are a big part of what's in Holganix. Basically taking the nutrients that are in the soil, plus those that we add in fertilizer, and whether that's organic or synthetic, doesn't matter, and making them more available. The bacteria actually are going to eat that fertilizer. They're going to grow on it, and they're going to keep it all in the root zone because that's where the bacteria like to live. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So those are bacteria. The next most abundant types of microorganisms are fungi, and there are different fungi that do different kinds of work. Trichoderma fungi like to live on the surface of a plant root, and what they do is they eat bacteria and other fungi, so they're protecting that plant root from pathogens. And when they eat bacteria and fungi, they're secreting nutrients because everything that eats ends up secreting a waste, but that waste is food for the plants. Next slide is penicillium fungi, again, kind of like the trichoderma, although penicillium are going to be a little more involved in breaking down plant material and in releasing nutrients that are in the soil for that plant root. And the next slide, probably my favorite and one of the most important kinds of fungi are these mycorrhizal fungi. So if you look at the picture there on the left, you can see the large plant roots. But if you look in between the roots, all that white feathery material that's really fine, that's fungus. That's not plant root. Mycorrhizal fungi are what are called symbionts. So they're mutually beneficial. They need the plant to grow, and the plant needs them. And basically what mycorrhizae do is they increase the effective surface area of a plant root 100 to 1,000 times. They get into spaces the plant root can't go. They find nutrients, they find water, and they also help solubilize different nutrients like phosphorus that may sit in the soil in a form, again, the plant can't take up and use. So mycorrhizae are really important. Next slide. There's also beneficial nematodes. So nematodes are really small microscopic worms, and a lot of nematodes are bad. because they eat plant roots and they sap the plant of energy. There are some nematodes, and we have these in Holganix, that actually eat those predatory nematodes that are attacking the plant. And this is a picture of a beneficial nematode literally eating one of those bad nematodes. So we actually see a lot of nematode control in our product. And then the last type of microbe I want to talk about are protozoa. So remember I said that the bacteria are eating our fertilizer. Now that's great, except we really want that fertilizer to go to the plant and not to the bacteria. Well, there are other microbes like fungi and protozoa, and the protozoa are much larger than bacteria. They eat those bacteria. So as the bacteria consume the nutrients in the soil, they grow like crazy and multiply. They can double in every 20 to 30 minutes. But then the protozoa come in and they eat the bacteria. And bacteria have a really high nitrogen requirement, but protozoa have a very low nitrogen requirement. Too much nitrogen is toxic to a protozoa. So they're constantly secreting nitrogen in that chemically preferred form for the plant right in the root zone. So quickly, what we're doing is we're putting fertilizer down. It's being captured by the microbes in the soil and then slowly released by other microbes right in the root zone. So more of the fertilizer we put down goes to the plant and less is wasted. That's how we get fertilizer reduction. It's not that we're creating plants that don't need as much nitrogen. We're creating an environment where more of what's there actually goes to the plant and less is wasted. Okay, next slide. We have, as Barrett said, nutrient enhancers or biostimulants. These are different products on the next slide, again, that help the plant take up nutrients. So humic and fulvic acids, kelp, which helps with water retention. There's different charged particles in Holganix that help with the cation exchange, basically keeping these really important micronutrients in the root zone available to the plant. And then the next slide. Microbial food. So let's go to the next one. So Barrett said Holganix Bio 800 Plus is refrigerated, and it makes us unique because the microbes in Holganix are not what are called spores, kind of like seeds that are dormant that take time to wake up. They are alive and ready to go. So we have a number of food sources in Holganix because we want these microbes that are beneficial to go and take over the population on the plant and in the soil as quickly as possible. So this is actually a host of active ingredients that self-replicate after we apply them, and we put food in that helps them do that. Okay, and the next slide. I think I'm turning over to Barrett now.
Yeah, so who uses Bio 800 Plus? You know, as I said before, we've got lawn care, landscape, golf course, sports turf, agricultural. The Holganix, people that use Holganix ultimately want to get healthier plants. Frequently, they want to reduce their nitrogen inputs, their phosphorus inputs, because either they just want to be better stewards or because there's regulatory pressure on them. People who are really focused on building better, deeper roots because they want a healthier, more sustainable plant that's going to do better in stressful conditions. They're going to be great customers for Holganix. Go ahead, Katie. Better weed control and disease suppression. So Holganix can actually help post-emergent weed controls work better. There's plant hormones in Holganix and natural stickers that help the broadleaf weed controls stay on the leaf surface of the broadleaf weeds and actually enter the plant more efficiently. As a result, the amount of active ingredient you might need in a 2,4-D-based herbicide, as an example, can be greatly reduced. Typically, we see 50% reductions, pretty common. These say 67 and 75%. We don't typically tell people to go that low, but if you can just think about going the lowest label rate and getting better control than you've ever gotten, that alone is usually something that's really beneficial to customers. We also seem to have some synergy with prodiamine, so pre-emergent crabgrass control. Not all crabgrass controls, not all pre-emergents, but prodiamine specifically. We help improve the barrier We make it more elastic, and because it's more elastic, think about something that's rubberized is much less likely to crack or get a hole in it than something that's more brittle. And so because when you can mix the prodiamine with the Holganix Bio 800, you get a more rubberized blanket or pre-emergent barrier, you get a little better control. Disease suppression is another one. And this, you can see it on this picture here. It's subtle, but to the right, we've got active disease. As I'm looking at this picture, and to the left, it's darker green. It's no active disease. And simply there was a Holganix Bio 800 was applied to the left side that's green and not to the right side that's more yellow. The result was the pathogen couldn't really thrive and take off in the Bio 800 side, but they could in the side that was not treated. So I'm not telling you that you'll never see disease or will not need fungicides ever again. What I am saying is you'll have healthier turf, healthier soil, and less disease pressure, which should translate into less fungicides and less problems with disease. Not a silver bullet. Not going to tell you everything's going to be disease-free, but less disease. This is a great example of where Holganix was used in a golf course situation. Paul Axshall at Murfield Village, Jack Nicklaus's home course in Ohio. They had to completely move this entire green 45 days before the President's Cup, a televised tournament. And there was a lot of nervousness as to whether the sod was going to be able to be laid, installed, and rooted in time to have all the play that they needed to have. Paul actually used Holganix at a robust rate and was blown away at the rooting that he got out of the sod, and that's typical. Anytime you're going to do a seeding situation, a sodding installation, or a new plant, tree, shrub, flower, or what have you, installation, Holganix is going to help at rooting and ultimately establishment. So nematode count. So this is really interesting. Holganix is not a control product. We don't claim to be a biopesticide. We produce healthy plants and healthy soil that have less problems. This is an actual study that one of our customers did we did not help him do this. He did this on his own and then gave us results because he was so blown away. But bottom line is Boca Raton, Florida, Broken Sound Golf Club, they just won a big award for sustainable course at the local golf, at the National Golf Show. But at the end of the day, you can see here his nematode counts before Holganix and after Holganix. They went down dramatically. In some cases, they went down to 0 on his parasitic nematodes. He also gave us this quote that says, before adding Holganix, and he uses a carbon source from Miramichi to my program, I'd rate the course a 5 on a scale from 1 to 10. Now I'd rate the course a 9. It's also saved him $32,000 in fertilizer inputs because everything's just working better. Not to mention what it would have cost to try to get nematode control with a chemical that might have controlled those nematodes. Here we're doing it with beneficial biology. So with that, let's move on to another slide, and we're going to pass it back over to Dave Stark, who's going to give you some findings that he's found in some of the research he's been doing around nematodes, as well as some yield data. So Dave, to you.
Yep. So if everything that we've told you about what microbes do is true, then we should be able to see results like we've just shown you, where we can use less fertilizer and still have plant vigor. We can see healthier soil that is reducing nematodes. So the bar chart on the top is a study that was done in Illinois, and this was done by a researcher. And basically what you're seeing, UAN is urea ammonium nitrate, so that's his nitrogen fertilizer. And this was phenomenal corn ground. So this is toward the high end of what is achieved anywhere. And with 20% less fertilizer, the 34 pounds all the way on the right versus the 45, the second bar, you can see yields are the same. And when he used Holganix, so with Holganix he could cut fertilizer 20% and get the same yield. With Holganix, he got 11 bushels more. I mean, this is a very meaningful result. It's showing that even on rich, fertile ground, we're seeing fertilizer efficiency benefits to the plant. And then down below, the result that you saw in nematodes on the previous slide, this is huge. So nematodes are a big problem in turf. They're a huge problem in agriculture. So we're doing studies at University of Illinois with a nematode expert, And in his benchtop lab scale test that's real quick and dirty, he showed that Holganix, at its normal commercial dilution, eliminates nematodes up to 75%, and this is like in an afternoon type test. His field trials, this is a field that had a lot of soybean cyst nematodes. He inoculated each plant with 2,000 nematodes on top of it. He saw a significant reduction in nematodes, so to the point where it was no longer economically a threat to the yield, and he actually saw higher yields. And in talking through what's causing this, there are bacteria and fungi, in addition to other nematodes, that will kill these dangerous nematodes to your plant roots. And that looks like what is going on here. And we're going to continue these studies. Next slide. Go to the, yeah. So this is these are peppers in Florida. This is a system that's just on drip irrigation. As you look down the row, you can see the difference in vigor with Holganix and without. This is 50% less fertilizer, 50% less. And he said it was by far his best crop ever. And when he called me and talked about this, he said, "Dave, my only regret is I didn't use it on my whole farm." Next slide, I mean. These are cucumbers there on the left. And this is in the Midwest with Holganix. You can see the difference in vigor. The farmer was able to harvest a week early. And in agriculture, that's very significant because the best prices, especially in produce, are the tail ends of the market, the very beginning and the very end, when there's not that much product available. Also, significantly higher yields. We have 4 years of trials of tomatoes in Indiana. This goes to processing diced and steamed and peeled tomatoes from Red Gold is the main manufacturer. 4 years of trials, we see about a 10% yield increase. So in conclusion, Holganix helps build healthy soils. And healthy soils let us use less inputs because the inputs that we use are used more efficiently. The plants are healthier, they're less susceptible to disease and stress. And, you know, again, I've got 30 years associated with Monsanto. This is an area that is a hot area in agriculture, really learning about the soil. It's kind of embarrassing that it's taken us this long to figure out how important soil is. But now that we see what really goes on right underneath our feet, and how the microbial life can have such a significant impact, this is part of the future. So with that, I think we can just go to questions, and I thank you for your attention.
So this one's from Rob. Does mixing directly with fertilizers pre-application affect in any way the microbiology?
Not typically. You know, in fact, we like to tank mix with fertilizers, Holganix Bio 800 with fertilizer in a liquid tank, put them out, and you'll get a much more efficient uptake of the fertilizer. There's no negative consequences to the microbes from the fertilizer, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, that type of thing. In certain situations, there are fungicides that can be, if you tank mix with Bio 800, you will have a negative effect on some biology. There are some miticides that could have a negative effect on some biology. So the question, the answer is not the same with all pesticides. You know, your simple weed controls, most of your common insect controls are all okay to use with Bio 800. And if you ever are concerned, you can go to our website with the compatibility list. On our website, you just put in the chemical and it'll tell you whether it's got a negative effect on the biology or not. And when I say negative effect on the biology, it doesn't mean it makes the product irrelevant. It just means it's like, you know, running into a headwind as opposed to, you know, running in with no wind at all. You know, there is some negative effect on the biology, so it may not work quite as well when you mix it with certain things like fungicides. But fertilizers have no problem at all.
Cool. This one's for Dr. Stark from Karen. And Karen grows organic vegetable transplants. And I don't know exactly how much you're going to be able to go into for her question, but she's essentially asking, Dr. Stark, would you discuss application, timing, and rates for bloom on seedlings?
Yes, so what I would do is I would use our normal, if you're doing produce crops, our normal ag product, and I would dip, or if you've got transplant trays, put a 1 to 15 dilution of Holganix with water, and either dip the seedling into that to soak the roots, or just water the trays with it and let it soak for a few hours. And that way we get the microbes really all over the roots. Otherwise, as soon as you transplant out in the field, you want to put Holganix down. You're going to have better transplant survivability. And again, right there at planting time, as you know, getting those roots established is key to having a really good crop. So that's how I would use it. If it's easier for you to go through irrigation, you can go through drip or overhead or backpack spray. Whatever's easiest for you, but definitely at application. And then 3 to 4 weeks later, I'd go through again at a 2 1/4 gallon an acre rate. And depending on your fractions of acres or how much you're using, we can help with the actual rates on that. And then I like a third application as well, about 3 to 4 weeks later. Call us or contact us, because if you have a lot of foliar diseases, we can help suppress that, but then the program's going to be a little different, and we're going to use a little more product, and we can tell you what we've seen there.
And incidentally, Dave Stark recommended to use the agricultural formula, which would be ideal. If your distributor doesn't have the agricultural formula, but they have the tree shrub or the bloom, you could use either one of those products in that same environment. Yeah,
I agree. Absolutely.
So this one's from Brandon Haley.
Hey, Brandon. Brandon's a celebrity around here.
Yeah, he really is. He's got an excellent question. In reference to how long the biology lives, do you have any data on the biology self-replicating in the soil?
Dave, do you want to take that? Brandon Haley, by the way, Dave, is he's Red Diamond. He's in some of our presentations around using Holganix for multiple years. You won a PGMS Green Star Award, and it's a great customer, great user. Just give you some background on Brandon.
Yeah, I'm familiar with some of those case studies. So we don't yet. So we are about 6 months into a study at University of Florida where we're not only looking at what happens to the soil microbiome or microbe population right after we apply Holganix, we're looking at it through time. So what changes happen through time. We're also looking at how root morphology changes with Holganix application. This coming year, we're going to do in different field trials some different soil tests to do the same thing, because it's become so routine to be able to even take a soil sample and rinse out the microbes and send it off to a lab and find out everything that's in there. So that's where overall science has really helped us do these studies a lot better.
Awesome. Okay, this one is from Sherry. Sherry, okay, we have a clay-based soil in northwest South Carolina. We have excessive phosphorus levels for years of applying products like Osmocote. How much P would be made available? This is for a large rose garden and many large flower beds.
Can we ask Brandon a question and get him to talk, or we can't do that?
I can unmute him if he's cool with that.
So Brandon, tell Katie if you want to participate in this question, since you're in Alabama, which sounds like it's a similar geography and I think you have similar soil, just as a user's point of view. But David, do you want to answer that question, or do you want me to take it?
No, why don't you take that one, because I'll chime in.
Yeah, hard for me to give you an exact answer as far as how much phosphorus is going to be available. What I will tell you is my experience in the field is that the need for phosphorus in a situation like you're explaining goes down dramatically because the phosphorus is in the soil. It just is not available. We have phosphorus solubilizing bacillus in Holganix. That phosphorus solubilizing bacillus will make that phosphorus much more available to those plants than it is currently. And as a result, your need for supplemental phosphorus is going to go down dramatically. In addition, one of the reasons you apply phosphorus is to get better roots and get root development. And we're going to get root development in other ways besides making the phosphorus available, we're also going to get you root development through the mycorrhizae, through the trichoderma, and through the synergy of all the biology working together. And so, we're going to get phosphorus-like benefits from the biology, not from phosphorus, and we're going to make phosphorus more available. And so for both of those reasons, your need for phosphorus should go way down. Really, it comes down to soil testing and practical experience and trial and error in the field to get you the exact number. But how did Brandon answer that?
So unfortunately, Brandon's mic isn't hooked up.
Okay.
Yeah, so he can listen, but he can't talk.
Okay. So interesting. Brandon Halley's running a big corporate facility, dramatically reducing fertilizer inputs, I think, around nitrogen and phosphorus in clay soil in Birmingham, Alabama. So probably similar to the soil conditions you're describing in northwest North Carolina.
So he typed in.
He says, we have not added phosphorus to our landscape plants in 4 years with above average blooming on azaleas and spirea. So bottom line is Brandon Halley saying 4 years of using Bio 800. He's basically done no phosphorus applications. We've got enough benefits from the soil and from the phosphorus solubilizers and from the other microbes that are giving us root development that he doesn't see the need for the phosphorus. So thanks for answering that, Brandon, and thanks for being a great customer. And thanks for the question, Sherry.
So this one's from Kathy. Is Bio 800 Plus regulated as a fertilizer or biostimulant due to the presence and advertisement of plant hormones?
Yeah, so Bio 800 is not a fertilizer. It's a 0-0-0 analysis. So because it does not have any fertilizer, it does not have any fertilizer requirements. It is a soil amendment and is registered as a soil amendment in most states. And I think that probably answers the question.
Yep. She does ask if she has a lot of questions. Can she ask them offline? So that goes for everyone. If you're okay with it, you can put in a question in here. If we don't get to it, then I will have someone reach out to you personally to get back with you on that question.
Yeah, and we can definitely go in detail there, Kathy.
Yep.
After the call, I guess, provide us your contact information, and we will set up a call.
Yep. Okay. So this one's from Karen. Have you seen any burn on seedlings?
With the Bio 800 alone, we've seen no burn on seedlings. Routinely people will mix other things in the tank with Bio 800, and those could be a fertilizer, could be some other biostimulant, and you could get burning in those situations. Holganix does have a tendency to accelerate how some other chemistries work, and so, for example, if you're using a Primo type growth regulator, we help the growth regulator work better at lower rates. But often, if somebody uses a Primo type growth, and you wouldn't use this in a seedling, I'm just using this as an example. But if they use a Primo at a high rate, they may actually see some negative effects from the Primo because we make it work too well. There's certain wetting agents that we have a similar effect on. So I only say that because it matters what else you put in the tank to answer that question fully. But if it was just Bio 800, we don't have any negative effect on seedlings.
All right, this one's from Ignacio. Can the liquid formulas, aka Bio 800 Plus, be added into fertigation tanks, specifically Easy Flow?
Yes, they can be added. If you're going to do that, we probably need to set up a phone call to talk through some things. We need to understand the exact system, and I know the Easy Flow, family of systems. We just need to make sure that the product gets used within a couple of days because we don't want it to sit outside of refrigeration. Again, it needs to be refrigerated, but it's not ice cream. You don't take it out of the refrigerator and it melts. You got a couple days at room temperature, so we'd want to make up a tank, get it used in, within 24 hours or so, and we want to make sure that if there's any screens or filters, that we understand what size the screen mesh is, so that we don't have any clogging. But other than that, it can be put through fertigation, and we have customers. In fact, that customer with the nematode counts at Broken Sound, it's not an Easy Flow system, but he's doing a 36-hole golf course every month through fertigation.
Cool. All right. So Scott Hoffman, name sounds familiar. I'm sure I know you from somewhere, is asking, in the processing tomato trials, was this applied foliar or through drip? And at what timing, transplant solution for the root development, or through the entire growing season. So I think it would just be easiest if I forwarded Scott the case study on it. Unless, David, you want to speak in general at this point.
I can just tell you that it was applied with transplant water, and then there were 2 foliar drenches about 4 weeks apart.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions? Because I think everything else was a repeat.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I really appreciate everybody's time and attention.